Hello, welcome. Today's lesson will be about revision, how to revise. Now, the tips which I'll be giving are applicable to GCSE, iGCSE, A-level and degree level students. So first of all, hello and welcome. How I can help you? I can help you get organised, devise a plan to revise, help you overcome the fear of exams, and take the sting out of preparation. So please watch through until the end of the presentation. So a little bit about myself. I've been teaching for 15 years. I've been in education for over 20. I've taught in secondary schools and colleges in the United Kingdom in England. So let's make a start. So the first question I'd like to ask you is, when you think about the word exam, what kind of feelings come to mind? How do you feel? Do you like exams? So what I'd like you to do, please, write down some of your thoughts. Just jot them down. Pause the video and then unpause the video once you've done that task for me. Okay, so these are some of the feelings which my students have told me how they feel. Sometimes they feel overwhelmed. They've got so much work to do. They don't know how to organise it, and that feeling of being overwhelmed is very common amongst students. Panic and worry, again, very common. People, it's natural to worry about these things because they have a great deal of importance. Pressure, people feel pressure when they think of exams. They have to get a certain result, so they have to do something. So that horrible feeling of pressure. And ultimately, it is the fear of the unknown. Because for some of us, doing an exam is something new to us. Maybe you're in a position where you haven't studied for an exam before. So in that respect, it can cause fear. So let's move on to the next slide. I want to look at some of the solutions which will address these fears. So let's attack our problem head on, and we have to become familiar with the unfamiliar. We have to become familiar with something which scares us ultimately. So to do this, you've got to have a goal. You've got to have a plan to work towards your goal, and you've got to have a desire and the mindset to succeed. Now, mindset is, it's a very big topic in itself, but just really to keep it simple for the purpose of this presentation, when I'm talking about mindset, I'm talking about being open to trying new things, trying new ideas with regards to your studying, and when you have a desire, have that determination and have the grit to succeed, and kind of that never give up attitude. So these things here, these points will address the fear of exams. So let's move on to the next slide. So I want you to hit the target. Now I'm going to ask you a question. If you were playing darts and this is our target, your aim is to hit the bullseye. If you had your eyes closed, what are the chances that you would kind of be successful and hit the bullseye? Well, it's a rhetorical question, isn't it? You probably have the chances would be quite low. However, what would happen if you had your eyes open and you were focused on where you were throwing the dart? What are the chances of hitting the bullseye in comparison to being blindfolded? Well, there's going to be a better chance that you're going to hit your target. And goals are very much like that, in that when you know what it is you have to achieve, you're more likely to hit your target, and that really is the essence of this presentation. And I'm going to kind of hopefully show you how we can reverse engineer our goals so that you are taking action which is meaningful and in a step in the right direction towards hitting your target. So let's move on to the next slide. So why are you here? So you're here hopefully to improve your practice, to get good grades. So, pardon me, we have to know our numbers. Now, my background's teaching English, so I'm obviously better at English than I am at maths. But what I like about maths, as you'll see, is when you look at it from a statistical point of view, it kind of depersonalizes it and takes away some of the fear if you are good with the numbers. So, let's have a look. So, the typical academic year in the UK is roughly about 39 weeks. If you're watching this internationally, it may vary, but let's use this as a ballpark figure. So the number of weeks in the academic year is, say, roughly 39 weeks. So let's say you have 3 hours a week of, let's say, English. So the number of lessons is 39 because there's 39 weeks in the academic year. Times that by 3 hours, i.e. 3 hours which you have in the week. So that equals to 117 hours. Now if we divide that by 24, it gives us 5 days. So over the course of 39 weeks, you are studying for a professional qualification for just 5 days. So actual formal input from your institution is just 5 days. So if you do your own independent study at home, so let's say you study for 1 hour a day, 4 times a week, you'll have this. The number of hours available per week is 4 hours a week multiplied by 39, i.e. the 39 weeks, equals to 156 hours, which equals approximately 6.5 days. Pardon me. So that's 6.5 days of your own independent study to prepare for a professional qualification. So if you were to take the total number of lessons which you have taught to you formally as 5, add that to your own independent study, 6.5, that's under 12 days for the full academic year in which you have to prepare for a professional exam. How does that make you feel? Are you comfortable with those numbers? Gosh, it is quite, when you look at it literally in black and white like we've got on the screen, we don't have much time to play with when you put it in those terms. So, let's move on. What do you need to know and what do you need to do? So these are the basic logistics of what we need to work with. So fundamentally, you need to know when the exam date is, sorry. You need to know how many exam papers you have. Now, depending on the exam paper, so for example, you must be able to write for 1.5 hours, or possibly more, depending on the exam you're taking. You have to know the exam paper specification. So, for example, in the UK, for English, it will be paper 1 and paper 2. And you have to know what good looks like. You need a model answer. How do I get there? Find at least 1 hour a day which you can commit to and dedicate yourself to 100%. So these are some of the things which you can do. Make notes on a poster or visual aids. Read a variety of past exam questions. Join a study group. If you like to talk things over with your friends, this is a good way. Read through class notes and highlight things which you're unsure of. Make cue cards. Identify learning topics. So, for example, if you are studying, let's say, so for example, if you're studying sociology and you're looking at the impact of Marxism and the impact of class. That could be one topic. Then maybe another topic could be like Weber and his iron cage of bureaucracy. So you have to identify what the learning topics are. And how we can do this? There's a couple of ways. You can go on to the internet, type in the exam specification. So, for example, if you're doing AQA, that could be a possible way where you can identify the learning topics, i.e. what would come up on the exam. Or more simply, simply communicate with your teacher or your lecturer. Ask them, what are the learning topics? Do an exam under exam conditions. Identify learning areas for development. Target and do very specific reading. And make notes from your reading to answer an exam question. So why have I talked about all of these? All of these points here, you will see hopefully by the end of the presentation how all of this makes sense. And the last part. So I put here, revising effectively and consistently is like building a house. So every time you work, you're putting a brick on your wall, your learning wall, and you're building your future. So it's about really doing action, doing consistent action day in, day out, which will help get you the result. So like building a house here, this is using the analogy of building a house. If you were to put one brick down for one day, leave it for a couple of weeks, and then put back 3 or 4 bricks all in one go intensely, leave it for a couple of days, and then go back and do it haphazardly, it's not going to get you the result really that you need. So it is about being consistent and persistent. Remember, consistent and persistent action is really the cement which keeps your house together, and I can't stress that enough. Very similar to going to the gym. If you were to work out, say 25 minutes, 3 or 4 or 5 times a week, so not very long, that would be much more effective and better for you than, say, training intensely for half an hour, 1 hour, one day, leaving it for a week, going back again intensely, leaving it for a couple of weeks. Consistency really is key, and I think in life in general, when you're consistent at something, it forms as part of your habit, and when you start to do something as a habit, it becomes more second nature and you get better at it. So please remember, consistency really is key. So some of the things you can do. So those of us who like maybe arcade games, like an arcade simulator, you can simulate the exam conditions. So this includes no phones, no computers, and no distractions. So by doing a practice exam in timed exam conditions, time yourself like a racing car driver is timing his lap times. Speak to your teacher and find out what is expected for each question. Do the question in timed and examined conditions. And repeat all of the above. Now, right at the beginning of the presentation, I said that one of the difficulties which people have, and I experienced this as a student many years ago, is the fear of exams, because it's the unknown. So when you start to do practice exams under exam conditions, what you're doing is you're simulating what it's like, and the better you get at replicating the better you get at simulating exam conditions, you're training yourself to be comfortable in what might be an uncomfortable environment. So the more you do it, the less fearful you become of it. And the benefit of this is that it also helps to prepare you psychologically, emotionally, and it kind of diminishes, the fear diminishes, because you're prepared emotionally and psychologically through your practice. And this is also a part of it, because part of managing, I feel, part of managing the fear of of exams is kind of managing your emotions, and you can kind of manage basically, but you can manage your emotions through practice. Yeah, so the better you get at something, the more familiar you are, the less scared you are basically of it. So let's move on to the next slide. So how do you actually organise and do your revision? So let's have a look. Step 1. Write a list of topics that could come up on your exam, and you have to know the exam criteria for each paper. So this is your checklist. Step 2. Do an exam question under timed exam conditions. So this will flag up where your weak areas are. So for example, you do a question and you simply might not be able to answer it. You might just get stuck, or you could maybe answer parts of it and then some other parts you think, oh, I'm not so sure about that. So it's identifying your weak areas. So what this does then, it helps you to target reading specifically for a purpose. When you read, make notes from your reading to answer the exam question that you tried in step 1. Yeah. So let's move on to step 3. Step 3. So completing step 2 will help you make a model answer. Because what you're doing, you're identifying the areas which you need to improve on by targeting reading specifically for a purpose. Now what you can do as well is you can check, I would advise, please check with your teacher and see if there is so if you identify an area which you need to improve on, double check that with your teacher, and if they say yes, that's right, you need to focus on these areas to improve, your reading will be effective. It's a bit, I suppose, like identifying holes in a bucket, and you're plugging those gaps so that you're not losing marks very easily, because it is very easy to lose marks if you're careless, or through no fault of your own, if you lack knowledge on that particular area. Step 4. Make keywords next to each paragraph, and then write these words down as a list. And then step 5, memorize your list. This is your essay plan. Step 6, do the exam from step 1 again, but this time you're doing something else. You're following a new procedure. Read the exam question very carefully. Become familiar with the language of exams. So let's give an example. For an exam which is for 1.5 hours, I want you to spend 10 minutes, the first 10 minutes, writing down your essay plan which you memorized. And then for each word, you should be able to write a few sentences which will have a domino effect on your writing, and new ideas will easily flow. Write your essay in 1 hour 5 minutes. This will allow 15 minutes for checking at the end to make sure that everything is fully complete. Step 7. Repeat all the steps 1 to 6 for all your exam topics. So by revising in this way, you are targeting your learning in a very specific way to answer the exam questions. Basically, your aim is to get good at answering exam essays, and this is what this method does. And if we want to put it in a diagram like this, step 1, exam practice. Step 2, then identifies areas for improvements, or you could say it identifies where the holes in your learning bucket are. And then once you've identified the areas for improvement, you then do targeted reading. So rather than just reading everything which you have, you're focusing your reading for a specific purpose. So you're becoming then very efficient with your reading, and you're saving time as well. So you're utilizing your time in an effective way. You then make your essay plan, and then you refine, and then you do the essay again. Now you can repeat this cycle as many times as you possibly can, so that you become really good at the exam. Now what you'll find is that when you go through this process, it becomes like second nature, and you no longer fear exams. I also do think that sometimes when you become competence equals confidence. So the more competent you become at doing an exam, it's a self-fulfilling prophecy. You feel better, so you do the action which makes you feel better, and it's just a really positive cycle. I did this when I was in university and college, and it does work. It does take a lot of hard work, but I feel that this is probably one of the most effective ways to prepare for exams. This is really specifically for people who are doing essay-based exams. Eliminate distractions. So let's have a look. What have I put? Find a place where you can work without being interrupted and distracted, because the environment is really important, that you have a place where you can just focus on your work without interruptions. Interruptions will make you unproductive. Turn your phone off. Have laser beam focus in what you're doing. And concentrate when you're working as well. Please be persistent. So I tell all my students, if you encounter difficulties and obstacles, and there's no doubt you will, please deal with them head on. So let's have a look. So what we're doing here, going back to the beginning where we had the target, I want us to do all the action which is laser focused towards our target. So this is really essentially the steps reversed engineered to hit our target. So let's look at some of the things, and if you want, when we finish this, you can add some other ones, some other points which you think may be helpful. Number 1, know your exam dates. Basic logistics here. Know how many exam papers you have. 1 paper, 2 papers. Learn, find out how long they're for. Know the exam criteria. Know what good looks like. Practice under exam conditions. Simulate the exam conditions until you can do them like the back. Them like the back of your hand. For example, in GCSE you'll have paper 1 and paper 2, for instance. Make sure you're able to write for at least 1.5 hours, or for however long the exam paper is. If it's 2 hours, 3 hours, factor that into your practice so that you can become competent and you're confident at writing for the amount of time which is on your exam. Read your notes. Find out what you don't know about through targeted reading. Very important, please ask for help and make useful notes. If that's via cue cards, posters, visual aids, whatever way works best for you. And all of this action is going towards producing a model answer, which you can hopefully replicate in your exam. Now, another point on this. You've gone through the actions of learning your keywords, which essentially is your essay plan. And you go into an exam and you see the exam question, and it's not identical like the exams which you've been practicing. Don't be put off. What I'd recommend, make sure you write down your keywords, because it will act like a domino effect when you start writing. But don't just try and replicate everything which you've done. Read the question carefully, and then you may have to adapt your answers to the question. So how can we, what is a strategy which can help you with this, is I'd say get a number of past papers, and what you'll find, generally speaking, is you'll find a continuity of themes. So that is maybe an extra kind of bonus tip for you. So you completed all of these actions. and hopefully you will achieve good grades. Now, there's a lot to it. I mean, what I'd like you to do again, please, once a presentation, once you've gone through this presentation with me, I'd recommend, please, pause the slides, go back over it, take notes, and try and digest it, because what I've put here, I've put a lot of information condensed about what you need to do to revise for an exam. So first of all, I'd just like to say, thank you for watching. I should have said this right at the beginning. I know that we're kind of going through strange, pardon me. I know that we're going through strange and challenging times at the moment, and I thought, this is my kind of way of giving back. Whatever level you're at as a student, revision is a difficult topic, and I feel, the more you kind of practice at it, the better you get. So, I'd just like to say, thank you very much for watching. I do appreciate it. Please like, share, and subscribe, so that maybe other people can benefit. Your friends, family, other students can benefit from this lecture. And I would also just like to add that I'm an author, and I've written a book, a revision guide, which goes into more depth and gives you more information about how you can organise yourself when revising for your exams. So if you'd like, if you click on the description below, there's a link to my book, which you can have a look at there. If you have any questions or comments, please put them in the chat box below, and I will do my best to get back to them. Thank you very much for listening. Take care, and bye bye.